The room froze the moment she said it. Morgan Blake, the iron-willed CEO of Blake Technologies, leaned across the polished conference table, her voice slicing through the hum of panic. "Fix the company server in the next 10 minutes, she told the maintenance worker crouched by the cables, "and I'll kiss you right here in front of everyone." Gasps shot around the room. Her team of executives stared in disbelief at the single dad in a faded shirt, his hands covered in grease, his little boy's drawing tucked in his back pocket. He wasn't supposed to be there, yet all eyes were now on him. Before we dive in, drop a comment with where you're watching from, and don't forget to hit subscribe for more videos like this. Let's begin. Asterisk asterisk. Are you serious? One of the executives whispered, choking on his coffee. Another chuckled nervously, glancing at the CEO to see if she was joking, but Morgan wasn't smiling. Her jaw was tight, her eyes like steel. The company server had crashed mid-presentation, wiping out a multi-million-dollar pitch. Her team, Ivy League graduates, top-tier programmers, had been frozen, helpless. Then, out of nowhere, Daniel Cole, a single dad working maintenance, stepped forward quietly and knelt beside the server cabinet. "You know this system?" Morgan demanded, her tone sharp, laced with disbelief. Daniel didn't look up. "I used to design network architecture before life happened. Just give me a shot." His voice was calm, steady like a man who'd already faced storms far worse than a crashing server. The room erupted in murmurs. Some smirked, others scoffed. A janitor? Fixing what 10 engineers couldn't. One executive sneered. But Daniel's fingers moved with precision, stripping wires, redirecting feeds, tapping into a buried override code that only someone who'd been there at the start could know. Morgan crossed her arms, watching, torn between skepticism and something she hadn't felt in years, hope. 5 minutes, she said flatly, "or I'll have security escort you out." Daniel didn't flinch. His hands worked faster, his mind racing through protocols he hadn't touched in nearly a decade. He thought about his daughter Emma, waiting at school, always asking why her dad worked late. He thought about the bills stacked on his kitchen counter. He thought about proving, just once, that he was more than a shadow in a hallway with a mop. Then, with a single keystroke, the massive screen on the wall flickered back to life. Charts, graphs, and projections burst into color. Gasps turned into stunned silence. The presentation was alive again. Morgan's eyes widened, shocked, almost breathless. Her lips parted as if she couldn't believe what she was seeing. You actually did it." The executives erupted, half in disbelief, half in applause. One muttered, "Unreal," while another whispered, "How the hell did he?" Daniel finally looked up, sweat dripping down his temple. His voice was low, but it carried across the room. "You don't always need a title to solve problems." The silence that followed was electric. And for the first time in her ironclad career, Morgan Blake smiled, not the cold, calculated one her board knew, but something warmer. "Almost human, Mr. Cole," she said softly. "I think you've just saved this company." And though the room buzzed with whispers, everyone knew something had just shifted, not just for the company, but for the CEO who'd thrown down a challenge, and the single dad who dared to take it. Asterisk asterisk, the boardroom hadn't cooled off for a second. Executives whispered in clusters, some shaking their heads, others still staring at the single dad like he was a ghost that had just walked through walls. The glow of the revived presentation filled the space, but the real light unsettling. And magnetic was locked on Daniel Cole. Morgan leaned back in her chair, her eyes never leaving him. Her jawline was sharp, unreadable, but her voice carried an edge no one dared interrupt. "Everyone out," she commanded. The room froze. "Ma'am?" Her VP stuttered. "You heard me," she said, her tone like glass about to shatter. "All of you, out now." One by one, chairs scraped, expensive shoes shuffled. and suits vanished through the heavy glass doors until only two people remained, the billionaire CEO and the janitor with grease-stained fingers. For a long moment, the silence was heavy enough to choke on. Daniel ran a hand across the back of his neck, uneasy. He was used to being invisible, not trapped in the center of a storm. Morgan's eyes softened just enough to sting. "Where the hell did you learn that?" she demanded, her tone quieter now, almost vulnerable. Daniel hesitated, then exhaled. "Before Emma was born, I wasn't a janitor. I worked in systems development, network security for startups. I was good at it. Too good, maybe, but then life happened. My wife passed, Emma was 3, and suddenly none of it mattered anymore. I couldn't balance late-night coding with being a father. So I took whatever job I could find that kept me close to home." Morgan blinked, and for a second the steel cracked. Her own reflection stared back at her from the glass wall, the untouchable CEO who had sacrificed every relationship, every sliver of softness for power. In him, she saw what she had refused to become, someone who'd chosen love over ambition. Her lips curved into something like irony. "So you let the world forget who you were, until today." Daniel's chest tightened. He wasn't looking for recognition, wasn't looking for pity. But her words hit him deeper than he expected. "I didn't let the world forget," he said quietly. "I just made sure my daughter didn't forget she had a father." For a moment, Morgan didn't speak. Her fingers drummed against the table, sharp taps echoing in the empty room. Finally she stood, heels clicking as she crossed the floor. Standing over him, she tilted her head, studying him like he was both a threat and a miracle. "You saved me today," she admitted, her voice lower than before, laced with something her board never heard: gratitude. "Do you know what was on that server? Contracts worth $500 million. If those files were gone, Blake Technologies would have been gutted in the press. You didn't just fix wires, Daniel. You saved my empire." He looked up at her, eyes steady. "It wasn't about your empire. It was about doing what was right." Asterisk, asterisk. That line so simple, so clean, stabbed through her like ice. For years, Morgan had buried herself in board meetings, court cases, negotiations where right and wrong blurred until only profit mattered. But this man, standing in work boots and faded denim, had just reminded her of something she'd lost. And then, almost too softly to catch, she whispered, "Maybe that's why I said it." Daniel frowned. "Said what?" Her lips curved. "The kiss." "That was no joke, Daniel. That was instinct. I haven't trusted anyone in years, and yet when I saw you step up, I knew you wouldn't fail." He froze. The air thickened. For a heartbeat, he couldn't move. A CEO feared, revered, untouchable, was looking at him like he wasn't invisible anymore. But then his daughter's face flashed in his mind. Emma, with her messy hair and gap-toothed smile, waiting for him at pickup. He shook his head, grounding himself. "I didn't fix it for you to prove anything. I fixed it because people needed me to." Morgan studied him, her gaze sharp but softer now, almost protective. She stepped back, giving him space. "You know," she said slowly, "people like you don't stay invisible forever. Sooner or later, someone notices." Daniel laughed under his breath, but it wasn't humor, it was disbelief. "Lady, I'm just trying to keep my lights on and my kid fed." Morgan's lips twitched. "And yet here you are holding $500 million together with nothing but your hands." Before he could respond, the door burst open. Her VP stumbled in, eyes wide. Morgan news already leaked. Investors heard about the crash. They want reassurance now. Morgan didn't miss a beat. Her spine straightened, her steel mask sliding back on. But instead of brushing past Daniel, she turned toward him. "Walk with me," she said. The VP's mouth fell open. "Him? He's just—" Morgan cut him with a glare that could kill. "He's the reason we still have investors to answer to, and you will treat him with respect." Daniel hesitated, But something inside him, maybe pride, maybe survival, made him follow. The hallways buzzed with panic, assistants rushing, phones ringing, executives snapping at each other. Whispers trailed behind them. Why is the janitor with her? Did he really fix it? What's going on? Inside the investor call, cameras blinked on, faces appearing across massive screens. Sharp voices filled the room. What happened, Morgan? We heard reports of a catastrophic crash. Why should we keep our money in Blake Technologies? Every eye turned to her. But then every eye shifted as she stepped aside, gesturing toward Daniel. This, she said firmly, is Daniel Cole, the man who prevented a meltdown today. You want reassurance? Here it is. A single father, working 2 jobs, stepped in when your million-dollar experts froze. And he saved your money, your contracts, and your future profits in under 10 minutes. Daniel's stomach knotted. Dozens of faces stared at him, wealthy, powerful, judgmental. He wasn't supposed to be here. But Morgan's hand landed lightly on his shoulder, steadying him. Tell them what you told me, she said softly. His throat tightened, but he spoke, his voice firm, resonant. You don't need titles or money to solve problems. You just need someone willing to stand up and fix what's broken. The call went silent. Even the investors, people who chewed up and spat out CEOs for sport, were quiet. Then slowly, a single voice cut through. Maybe Blake Technologies is in better hands than we thought. Morgan's eyes flicked toward him, and for once, her smirk wasn't calculated. It was genuine. As the call ended, she leaned in close, whispering just for him. Daniel, you don't know it yet, but today changed everything. For me. And maybe for you too. And though he didn't answer, he felt it too. Something had shifted. Something bigger than wires, servers, or contracts. Something that would not stop here. Asterisk. The next morning, Daniel thought it had all been a dream. He drove his old truck to work as usual, Emma's laughter still echoing in his head from the night before, when she'd begged him to tell the server story one more time. He hadn't told her everything. Of course not about the CEO's strange challenge, or the kiss she nearly made good on. But she had clapped her hands, proud of him in a way he hadn't seen since her mom passed. When he walked into Blake Technologies. That day, though, reality hit him. Heads turned. Whispers followed him down the marble hallway. Security guards, who usually didn't even look twice, nodded respectfully. He wasn't just a janitor anymore. He was the man who saved the company. And Morgan Blake? She was waiting. The elevator doors opened to reveal her in a fitted charcoal suit, hair pinned back, eyes sharper than ever, but softer when they landed on him. Mr. Cole, she said smoothly, though her lips twitched like she was suppressing a smile. Walk with me. Daniel cleared his throat, shifting the toolbox in his hands. I've got floors to mop. Not today, she said. Today you have an office. His feet stopped dead. An office? She turned, her heels clicking. You're not invisible anymore. Get used to it. Inside the executive floor, glass doors slid open to a space he didn't belong in. Wide windows overlooking the city. A desk polished to a shine. A computer that probably cost more than his truck. Daniel stood frozen, his chest tight, until Morgan stepped closer. Her voice was lower now, almost private. You could have left yesterday, she said. You could have fixed it and walked out. But you didn't. You stayed. And that, her eyes softened, told me more about you than anything else. Daniel shook his head. I'm not looking for promotion, Ms. Blake. I just need steady work to keep Emma safe. For the first time, she flinched at her own reflection in the glass. I used to think like that, she admitted. That all that mattered was survival. That if I built walls high enough, no one could hurt me. But then you walked in, dirty shirt, calloused hands, and reminded me what it looks like when someone fights for something real. Her words hit deeper than he wanted. His hands curled into fists. Emma's all I have. Every decision, every late night, it's her. She's my reason. That's why I stayed. And then suddenly the storm broke. The door slammed open. Her CFO, flanked by 2 board members, stormed in. "This is outrageous," he barked. "You're putting the future of this company in the hands of a janitor? Investors are whispering about nepotism, scandal. Do you realize the risk?" Morgan's face snapped back into its steel mask. "The only risk here," she fired back, "is underestimating the man who just saved your 6-figure salary." The CFO's voice rose. "You can't be serious." Daniel stepped forward, his voice calm but unshakable. "With respect, sir, I don't want your titles or your seat. But yesterday, while you all panicked, I fixed what you couldn't. Not because I'm smarter, but because I didn't freeze." The boardroom fell into silence. His words, simple but heavy, hung in the air like a verdict. Morgan's eyes gleamed. "That's why he stays. Not because I say so. Because he's already proven he belongs here more than some of you." The CFO's face burned crimson, but he didn't argue. He stormed out, muttering under his breath, while the other executives lowered their eyes. When the door shut, Morgan turned back, her shoulders lifting with a quiet breath. "You know," she said softly, "you could have humiliated him. You could have used that moment to get revenge." Daniel shrugged. "Emma doesn't need a dad who wins arguments. She needs a dad who keeps his dignity." For the first time, Morgan's throat tightened. Her eyes glossed just enough to catch the light. She looked away, almost ashamed. "I wish someone had told me that years ago." The silence that followed was different now. Not tense, heavy with understanding. Finally, Morgan extended her hand. "Stay, not as a janitor. Not as some background man nobody notices. Stay as someone who matters here. Help me rebuild this company the right way. I'll make sure Emma never has to worry again." Daniel hesitated. His pride wrestled with his fear, but then he thought of his daughter's smile, of the chance to give her more than survival, to give her a future. Slowly, he reached out and took her hand. Her grip was firm, steady. And for the first time, Morgan Blake's walls cracked just enough to let kindness slip through. When they stepped out of that office, the whispers started again. But this time, Daniel didn't feel like the man people ignored in the hallway. He felt like a man standing in the light. And Morgan? She didn't look at him like an employee. She looked at him like a partner, someone who'd forced her to remember what humanity, trust, and second chances really meant. The single dad had fixed more than wires. He'd fixed something broken inside her too, and the strangest part? She let him.